Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again. I'm gonna take a minute to vent to you guys. A couple months ago, my wife and I booked airfare for a family vacation that involves my brothers and my parents, all going out to North Carolina. And we booked airfare from my little Wisconsin airport that we used, take us out to the Virginia airport. And we got word like probably 3 weeks ago that our flights were changed. We had a flight that was going to have one layover with 4.5 hours of total time to get from here to there with one layover. And they changed our flight to one that would have two layovers, so 3 total flights, and was going to be 15.5 hours, which traveling with a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old would be pretty ridiculous. So when they did that, they offered us the opportunity to cancel the flight, which we did. And I've been checking flights off and on since then. We still haven't booked anything until last night. I went and I checked again, and the same stupid flight was booked or was available again that took us from our little Wisconsin airport to the Virginia airport with one layover, a 4.5 total trip, same times, everything except a different flight number. And it was $120 more per person. So I feel like we ended up booking it, but for another it was like $500 or $600 after fees. We got the same flight we had, so I feel like we were totally scammed. Anyways, enough venting, guys. We are getting so close here in Wisconsin to having total ice out. We've got a lot of walleye fishermen out on the river because the main river channel's open. The backwaters are getting really close. We've got a week of warm weather coming with some rain mixed in. I think by next weekend there will be some good open water fishing around the area that I'm at. Southern Wisconsin already has open water, but I'm talking, north central Wisconsin. We're getting really close, so I'm pretty excited about that. So I wanted to do a video for us northern anglers, specifically having to do with ice out, and what my top baits are for both largemouth and smallmouth right after ice out. So I'm talking water temperatures that are anywhere in the mid 30s up until like the mid 40 range, and at that point then we start getting into more of our pre-spawn phase. But there's still a lot of tough fishing as soon as the ice comes off. Normally our water warms up really pretty quick because to get the ice off we have to have warm temperatures, but there's a period where the fishing can still be kind of tough. But if you're using the right tackle, you can generate some bites. So I'm going to start with, let's go with smallmouth first. So the smallmouth are going to be still either in their wintering areas, which could be super ultra deep, 50 foot range, and they could be working their way up to some of the flats that have some rock and gravel and old weed transition on them. So they're going to be all over the place. They are dictated quite a bit by water temp too. So depending on where you're at and what your lake structure is, they could be really deep or they could be really shallow. So I've got some baits that are my go-tos. The first bait that I'm gonna just pick out is a small swim bait. This is a 3.3 Kitech on here, Fat Impact, I think, and then it's also got a Dirty Jigs Matt Steffen guppy head. And just this little swim bait, slow rolled close to the bottom, not necessarily on the bottom, but close to the bottom on your points, rock bars, and transition flats are going to be really good. You don't want to do anything special. Just cast it out, go with a light head so that you can really slow roll it and keep it off the bottom. I usually start with about an 1/8 ounce or go up to a 3/16. If I'm fishing deep, like 20-foot range, then I might go with a 1/4 ounce. But you got to have a small swim bait. If they're still deep and still on their wintering areas, at that point, that's when I like to go with a blade bait. Like this is a Silver Buddy right here. Another one I've been playing with that I like is the Circuit Vibe by Depths. That's a really good one too. The key here is you're just going to recognize the fact that the fish are still in their wintering and have not moved up into the areas that they're thinking about staging to spawn or to spawn on. So those are really good. If you are finding that they are up on some flats because you're on a body of water where they get up on the flats, one of the best super cold water baits is a marabou jig. This one happens to be the VMC one. But if you have a good marabou jig, that is a bait that is great. I'll be doing a bunch of marabou videos coming out here hopefully in the next couple of months because it is a really good spring bait. So for smallmouth, those are my go-to baits. I do have one crossover smallmouth to largemouth bait, and I'll mention that last, but it's a great one to have as well. For largemouth, after the ice comes off, what you're going to be looking for are your shallowest bays, your mud bottom bays, your bays that normally have a ton of weed growth that get choked out. If you have bays that have some stumps in it, some docks in it, some cattails, anything that's going to grab warmth is going to be where you're looking. The fish really can get grouped up in some of these areas, and these, I'm looking at the areas that warm up super fast. So the main lake may be 35 degrees. It may still have ice on it, but if you have some bays, super shallow bays that are like 5 to 10 degrees warmer, those are going to be the areas that the largemouth are in. And you're looking for things that are going to hold heat. It could be a big rock in the water. It could be an old grass clump from the previous year. Could be pad stems. Anything that grab heat is where the largemouth are going to be. So what I like to do, a lot of times I'll go into those bays and I'll be throwing a good lipless. This is the Berkeley War Pig, one of my favorites. But I'm just looking to cover ground, and a lipless is a really good bait to do it. I'm not imparting a ton of action, a lot of straight retrieve, trying to tick the bottom, tick the weed tops, and I'll give a little pop here and there, but it's a really good search bait for finding fish. Another good search bait for finding fish is your square bills. That's the Berkeley Square Bull, another really good square bill crankbait. But what you're going to be doing with that is if you've got some banks that have some hard bottom on it, some rock mixed in with maybe some grass or some lay down trees, that's where you're going to be looking for the square bill to really come into play. It's a really good cold water bait to generate bites. I think a lot of people don't view a crankbait type bait is a good bait when the water's super cold, but they really do work well. And you can reel those baits super slow, almost like you're working a jig through some of that stuff. So it can be great. Speaking of jig, that's my last one. I really like to throw a small compact jig. This is the Dirty Jigs Scott Canterbury compact flipping jig. Just really like a beefed up bitsy bug. But I love throwing a small jig in and around any of that cover that I think is going to hold heat. So your docks, your boat hoists, your lay down trees, stumps, cattails. Cattails can be excellent. But any sort of shoreline cover that's going to hold heat is a really good thing. The other tip that I'll give with that is that's when, guys, your pork frogs are really good. You tip a jig with a pork frog. Pork frogs excel in cold water. This is an Uncle Josh pork frog, which work great. I mean, I love them in cold water. That's basically what I'll use on the jig. I would say a good, at least half of the time in cold water. The crossover bait that I wanted to mention is a jerk bait. A jerk bait, if you're on a body of water where you've got a mixed bag of fish, a lot of largemouth, a lot of smallmouth, your jerk bait is probably the best crossover bait where you don't know what you're going to catch on whatever cast it is that you make. You could catch a 4-pound largemouth, you could catch a 4-pound smallmouth. It's a really good bait, again, if you've got some good flats, if you've got some contour line transitions where you have really steep dropping contour lines that lead into a flat, and on your points, obviously. So you're going to start looking for fish that are moving up for some warmer water, starting to think about the stage for the spawn. These are all mainstay baits that I have in my boat anytime the ice comes off. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. A lot of us northerners are going to be getting out on the water here pretty soon. I'm pretty excited. I hope you guys are too. Stay tuned. Another video coming out tomorrow.